Jay, it's so good to see you.
Good morning. It's good to see you too. It's been what, 3 months, two
It's
months
been
now?
3 months. This is Rosemary Armao, your host of our podcast, Beyond the Brink and Fighting Back. And with me is my friend Jay Jochnowitz. We do usually a monthly salon where we get together in this beautiful little club room in Vermont and talk with a small audience about issues of the day. It's a great blast, and we haven't done it since November because of holiday breaks and then extremely unusual winter weather, which I think we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So we decided we couldn't go any longer, and we had to do it virtually because there's too much news. We'll never catch up if we didn't talk now.
As Monty Python said, it's better than bottling it up, isn't it?
So there are a zillion topics, but I think the first one is obvious to everyone. We have to talk about ICE's rampage in Minneapolis. And I worry about bringing that up because, of course, it is the only topic on most people's minds, as it should be. And yet, what more can we say that hasn't been said? Well, how have you put this all into perspective for yourself, Jay?
You know, I think it was an inevitable the killing of Renee Good, the killing of Alex Preddy. I think these were inevitable outcomes of a very badly trained. I heard something fascinating last night that has been bothering me ever since. That they cut the training for these people to
Yeah.
40. Amy Klobuchar both brought this up.
Yep.
That they cut the training to 47 days
Right.
instead of 6 months. And the reason they chose 47 was in honor of the president being the 47th president. They
Uh,
thought that was a kind of nice convergence of timing. If that is true, that is a North Korean level of insanity in
yep.
this administration of fealty to a leader that is it is so troubling. But watching these videos over and over, and then watching the aftermath of them, watching what
Right.
happened in them, it is clear that these are not agents anymore. They are thugs. They are an armed gang of street thugs, and that's
Out
how
of
they behave.
control, out of control, and appreciated by leaders who don't see that they're a gang of thugs, who still want to portray them as legitimate law enforcement agents who are protecting Americans. It's just a huge propaganda vision, except vision sounds positive, and there's nothing positive about this. Um, we saw the first chink in the armor of justification from Washington with some sort of top level shakeup we're seeing. Most of the analyses that I've read don't see this as any real answer, that a real answer would be, oh, impeaching Kristi Noem. You see that happening?
I would like to see it happen. I think that her behavior in this, she's quite a performer. I give her that credit. That everything she says with absolute conviction and sincerity. And she could probably just change on a dime and say the opposite thing with as much conviction and sincerity. But um, what protects her, I think, from impeachment is the fact that she is so convincing in her act that people would say, well, there's nothing malicious about what she's doing. She may be incompetent, but she's not malicious. I think she's malicious. I think
Oh,
she,
I do too. And you say it's sincerity. I think it's cosplay. I think
yeah,
she's quite a cute little actress, and she uses that to here's what has really hit me as I watch the administration try to explain this away is thank God there are video cameras now
mhm.
because they would have totally projected this whole both of the killings, Renee Good as well as Alex Predit, as justified, as out of control activists out to hurt ICE. And it might have been believable had you not seen the video, hundreds of videos now in this case.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still working on a possible column on this. It simply started with the lies, the
Yes.
demonization of this, and and it gets into it touches on that that if this couldn't be proved otherwise, this would still be the narrative that these were
Right,
vicious terrorists, these
right,
were radicals. He was an armed leftist, out to cause maximum
right.
damage and kill as many people as he could. That would still be the narrative if there
Yep.
had been video proof. I'm
And it would be believable, moreover. I mean, I am mystified as to why anybody would bring a gun to a protest. I get the whole Second Amendment, he had the right to, and he didn't brandish it and all that, but go to I don't even bring a cell phone to mine. I'm afraid that I'm going to be tracked down or that would be used to hurt me or people I care about. What was he thinking to have a gun? That, of course, does not justify, as the administration has done, blaming the victim.
Yeah, and he never took the gun out.
No, no. And it was taken away from him before they began shooting.
Yeah.
One thing that we don't talk about, or the administration rather doesn't talk about, is that he did have a gun, and he was going to be arrested, but there were what, seven agents, and they could not take down one man with a holstered gun.
He was
Oh,
down.
real law enforcement could do that easily. They do it every day. They're trained to do that.
And he was down.
On the ground,
He
yes.
was down. They the Times video analysis this morning showed that both his hands were on the ground, and
Ugh,
clearly he was holding his phone, and
yep.
in his other hand he did have something in his other hand. I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't a gun. I mean, it couldn't even be mistaken for a gun.
No.
And the gun had been taken away. And the scenario that I thought happened kind of did when this first came out, that somebody said gun, and the guy who shot him first pulled his gun out. And so I think it was, there was a moment of panic. I'm not justifying this in any way. I think the guy should be criminally charged for what he did. He's a trained federal agent who should have been in complete control of his
Right.
faculties and been able to assess the situation. But if you watch it, he just turns around, pulls his gun out, and starts shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
No assessment of the situation at all.
And once again, the number of shots is just astounding as well for a man on the ground surrounded by other agents. It's thugs out of control. I think they were high on adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying thing. And this is not that it matters, but both of the victims in Minneapolis were really worthy people. Can I say that? You know what I mean? They were
Yeah.
good people, active members of their community, parents, do-gooders. They did not deserve this. Not that anyone does, but particularly these people, they could not have picked, from a public relations point of view, worse people to have killed unjustifiably.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything we know about him is he was, an absolute humanitarian, a
Yeah.
ICU nurse,
Yep.
loved dogs. I mean, everything about him was good and noble, from what we know, and he didn't fit the description that they wanted to come out with, which was, and this in the same case with Renee Good, some deranged killer.
Right, right.
That
And
is the go-to for this president, and they're trying to distance him as much as possible from all the statements
controversy.
that have
Yeah,
been made,
yeah.
and make it look like he's blameless in all this. I mean, this is I really think that everybody sat down in the administration and said, look, we have to reboot. We have to make it. First of all, we have to get the president in the clear, and get him out of the line of political fire, because it's pretty clear that everybody misspoke, and they misspoke unprofessionally. This is not how you want your government to act in a democracy, in a republic, in an accountable government. And I think that they realize that. So I think they're in a reboot mode. I don't think they're going to get better. So, we can talk about Tom Homan being the new.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that. But first, I want to reemphasize something you said, but we need to emphasize it. And that is that they came out with this counter version to the reality immediately after the shooting, after the death, immediately in both cases, Renee Good and Alex Predit, they came out right after, minutes afterwards, saying he wanted to. This was a situation where some guy really wanted a mass execution of law enforcement, without even time to look at the video that the whole world could see. I'm sorry, even authoritarians who want to act like this, who want their government to do exactly what ours is, they do it with more finesse than the Trump administration has done. It has been badly handled in every way. So Trump's anger at Kristi Noem, which I don't think has anything to do with unjustifiable murder of U.S. citizens, has to do with inept public relations. And that's horrifying.
Yeah, the only thing I would disagree with you on that is that I did see a lot of elements of authoritarianism in this. This is the reaction of, if this had been Iran, they would have
Yeah.
talked about, they would have immediately come out with a statement that this was done by American and Zionist elements. If it was, North Korea, it was done by
Yep.
South Korea and the American dogs. If it was, China might have been a little more restrained because they're trying to look
Yeah.
civil. But I really saw a lot of elements in, and that's kind of where I was hopefully going with a column on this. A lot of elements of an authoritarian government immediately seizing on a narrative that this fits our past narrative of everything, and we can do no wrong.
Right. Right.
I'm just surprised they've backed off, that they're starting to back off.
Well, and that is because of the reaction to these killings was not something you would see in China or South or North Korea. Uh, what you saw was a huge uprising of people
Yeah.
in sub-zero weather, which amazes me. It's hard to protest right now. Believe me, I've been doing it. And it's you have to force yourself to get out there. And
Oh yeah.
people came out in the thousands. They are legitimately outraged. And that has to be scary to the Donald Trumps and Stephen Millers of the world to see Minnesotans and Minneapolis people and the governor and the mayor who are using bad language and bringing out the National Guard. We're in uncharted territories here.
Yeah. Yeah. People are angry. I was thinking about, kind of what's the next step if this administration digs in and kept
Right.
up its adamancy that they're in the right and the agents were in the right and everybody else is wrong. And I was thinking that, what kind of, demonstration beyond 50,000 people or tens of thousands of people showing up in Minneapolis would do. I was hoping to see a demonstration. I still am at Mar-a-Lago. That people just shut
Uh,
down the roads around Mar-a-Lago and challenge the administration. What are you going to do if thousands of people show up there or show up at his golf courses? Are you going to have these heavy-handed tactics? No, you can't. You can't. Not on American cameras.
I would like to see a continuation or a magnification of the one-day general strike that you saw in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I think all of us, I'm talking, people who don't agree with Trump, all of us in the country need to walk out of jobs and away from schools and churches and go out in the street. And it's going to take a mass uprising, which we don't generally have in this country, not since Vietnam. So, but we're getting there. We're pretty close. I'll tell
I
you
would
what
love
I've
to
been
see that.
thinking about watching all of this has been Sarajevo, where, I did a lot of work in Bosnia, which suffered a terrible war in the mid 1990s as Yugoslavia split into individual states. And there's a bridge over the Mijaka River in Sarajevo, and on it is a little memorial to Suada and Olga. And they were the first two victims of of what became the Bosnian War. There was a peaceful protest, and they were picked out by Bosnian Serb snipers and killed. They're the first two murders. And I imagine a plaque like that over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis with the names of Renee and Alex. I
Mm.
see violence in our future. My sons have been saying this for a long time that the left needs to arm the way the right has and needs to get serious about a possible civil war. And I poo-pooed it until the events of the past couple of weeks in Minneapolis. Is that extremist?
No, I don't think it is. I had a friend, still have a friend, good friend, who uh, we talked about this months ago. He had gotten himself a concealed carry permit. He had made plans to leave the country if things got bad. And I said, I think, maybe you're worrying a bit much. And he said, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
um, it's coming. And this is not a radical person. And he said, you're going to know it. You're going to know it's getting bad when they start shooting people in the street.
Oh my gosh.
And he
Here we
called
are.
me just this weekend, and we had a talk, and said, "I told you,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Well, here's the one thing that I that frustrates me, and it has frustrated me for the last year, um, is that just look where we've been in the last few weeks. We went from, or last few months, we went from the Epstein files to uh, the arc is actually, more detailed than this. A week ago, we were worried about the collapse of NATO and the invasion of Greenland.
Hmm. Or
Before
maybe
that, we
Iceland.
were we were looking at our, assassinations on execution, extrajudicial killings on the high seas.
Yep.
Before, in the middle of that, we were talking about whether or not we're going to invade Iran, to stand up of all things for protesters there. This is a president who, whether he plans it, in as well as he appears to, or just happens to stumble on this chaos, who rules by chaos and
Yes.
takes advantage of it.
Yeah, he does love all the uproar and the emergency stuff. He really does. It is and people are getting increasingly tired of it. Mr. Homan's going to save us from all of this. Tom Homan is the guy who will bring this all around. What do you think of that idea?
Well, they're going to try to make it look, and I think the Republicans are, a lot of Republicans are seeing that this is the only way out of it, is to make things look like voices of reason are coming into the situation. Trump is not going to tolerate voices of reason if
Yeah.
they disagree with him. We know that from how he has handled his second term compared to the people he had in his first term. He's got no brakes on him, and nobody's going to put brakes on him. So, this morning, along the lines of Tom Homan, one person who's been under a lot of pressure in New York is Mike Lawler, because
Right.
he's in a vulnerable seat, and he's trying to portray himself as a reasonable Republican. So he wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, and if you just breeze through it, it sounds like, oh, this is good. This is the voice of reason. But if you give it a close read and look for, has he condemned Donald Trump in anything on this thing? Has he even condemned ICE, really? No. He had some mild, um, well, this is too much and it needs to be looked into. But other than that, he said we need to continue with the good work that Donald Trump has done.
Correct. Susan Collins, Jay, is the same way. Been she's done this for years now, but her view is yes, ICE has gotten a little out of hand. We need better training, or more training. You mentioned how they cut down, and this is like the same thing we heard in the Middle East when we heard that Americans were torturing prisoners in Abu Ghraib over in Iraq, the Iraqi prison. And that was it. They just needed more training. You don't get training to become a human being, to be humane and to treat people like people instead of animals. So yeah, there is no significant Republican pushback to all of this. I find that amazing.
No, and I think they see this as a setback. That
Yeah.
this is not, we're not going to reform. We're going to look like we're going to reform. We're going to try to finesse this. But Homan, they're going to argue he's an Obama appointee from way back, or he was in the Obama administration. So this is a guy who's he's bipartisan in his approach to immigration, and he was trusted by a Democratic president. So they'll put him out there as kind of the face, but you still have ICE. And as one person, Heather Cox Richardson, put it beautifully, that the answer to Dachau was not better training for the guards.
Yeah, yes, I've seen that quote on the internet. The other thing I've seen all over the internet, and I have to admit that in the middle of this horror, I have found it delicious, is the hypocrisy over blaming a man who had a gun. Uh, these are defenders of the Second Amendment saying he brought on his own death. Defenders of the Second Amendment, people who turned Kyle Rittenhouse, a young man who carried a gun into a protest, not even in his own state, and ended up killing two people. They turned him into a hero. They
Mhm.
made two people in, where was it, Florida, who brandished, no, it's Missouri, sorry, who brandished guns at protesters in front of their house. They had them speak at the Republican convention. They have made heroes and American patriots out of gun carriers. And now they're blaming Alex Petty, an ICU nurse, for his own death because he had a gun in his holster
Right.
in his pants or something.
It is interesting, and I said to my wife the other day, I said I'm strangely encouraged that the NRA is actually a little
Yeah,
perturbed by the administration, and so is
yeah,
Gun Owners of America, which portrays it as the truer version of gun rights from the
exactly.
NRA. That they're angry about the suggestion that bringing a gun to a protest is necessarily a bad thing, and I think from what I was reading that they were saying even open carry of the gun would not have been illegal in
Not, no, not in that state.
Minneapolis.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So do you foresee, okay, I think both agree that homing is not going to be a big difference except in the optics and in
Mhm.
the way we handle uncomfortable situations. The National Guard being deployed now, that seems like a new territory that we have entered. We have state authority fighting against the federal authority. I don't know. My American history is a little bit weak, but the Whiskey Rebellion, is that the last time we had a situation like this?
Um,
That actually wasn't it. That was before we actually had a country. It was in George Washington days, but we have the state right people against the Federalists.
yeah, probably the Civil War is the only last
Yeah,
time
the
we're
Civil
going to get
War,
even
right,
close to
right,
this in a real sense. I mean, there might have been. I think everybody has always at the state level stood down when the federal government does a show of force, and in this day and age, well, they always, the federal government always did have the best weapons. I mean, even in whatever
right.
war you're talking about, they were, but now it's a level of magnitude beyond that. I don't think anybody wants to get into that moment. And I don't think the guards want to get into that. The National Guard generals and commanders want to get put in that position. I don't think the governors want to put them in that position. I think what they'd like to do is put some distance between protesters and federal agents. But I think what Minnesota's suggesting is get out of our state,
Yeah.
and let's cool down.
There's just so many ICE agents now in that city. It's overwhelmed. I mean, there can't be that many, uh, as they call them, illegal aliens, bad guys that they're going after in that city to justify the number.
There was one thing about this, and about Homan and about how much is going to change. That I was thinking of when you mentioned the optics of this. I think it was a New York Times reporter who was kind of writing an analysis piece of this, and he described it in a way that was really interesting. That you've got these very tight shots that you see on social media, particularly of government officials and Homeland Security and stuff doing
Right,
their roundups and doing their jobs. But if you pan out from those shots, there's chaos all around them. And they said
right,
that he described it as what ICE is out there doing is basically gathering content for the social media accounts of Kristi Noem and Steve Miller and Donald Trump and all these people that this is all about just making it look like they are doing this as opposed to having a coherent plan. So now it's being talked about as a bipartisan. That's what Lawler brought up, was a bipartisan solution that he has tried so desperately to get people to work on with him. And we've been there for
yes.
15 years now, before Donald Trump. We've been there with bipartisan solutions, and the Republicans have repeatedly rejected it and said it's insufficient. I don't think they're going to. I think everybody's buying time at this point.
No, again, I go back to the Republicans have been solidly still behind Trump after one disaster after another, and I just don't see that changing. And it is indeed extremely depressing. I want to talk about ice of a different sort now, Jay,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
find a subject change here, and that is the winter storm that hit in the Northeast and much of the rest of the country over this past weekend. I don't remember a storm like this since my childhood. Um, Climate change has really reduced the amount of snow and big storms in winter.
Mm.
Global warming, we used to call it. But this one felt like back when I was a kid again. 2 feet of snow out there. You can't see anything in the backyard except the tips of the trees.
Yeah.
And it was a bit kind of nostalgic, and I have to say, kind of comforting.
Mm.
Did you find that?
Oh yeah, no, I looked out. I was like, oh, this is so nice. And you go outside, and the snow kind of muffles sound, so it becomes
Yep.
very quiet out there. I didn't have a hard cleanup. We had about a foot up here in the Helderbergs, and I enjoyed it greatly. It was wonderful. I do remember probably I actually no, I have a photo hanging on one of the walls, I think, or on the refrigerator of my son and my older daughter. My younger daughter hadn't been born yet in Guilderland, and they're bundled up in their snow outfits. We're
Snowsuits.
standing in front of the snow, which is higher than they are.
Yep.
Now, some of that had been shoveled off the driveway, but we've had a few, and I had a few up here where I had to crawl over the top of the snow out of my car because I could just push my car into the driveway a little bit and then try to get to the house and get to the snowblower. We don't have them often, so this is weird, but
Yeah, it felt like a treat almost, even though there are no snow days in school, or that amazing feeling of liberation when you heard your school read off on the radio and knew that it was going to be shut down for the day.
yes.
Now, I'm teaching at UAlbany, and what they do is they switch to alternative learning, which means you got to do the same work, you just have to do it on your computer now. We didn't do
Oh,
that when we were kids.
oh, that's a ripple.
Yeah, it's not a real snow day anymore. No such thing. That's a loss.
Oh, I remember doing that when I was when the kids were growing up. I remember listening, getting up in the morning and watching the scroll of the
Yeah,
district
on
and the
TV or on
clock.
the radio. We'd have the radio on in the morning, and we'd be praying over hot chocolate to hear Colony Central or one of our elementary schools on the list. Yeah, don't have that anymore. But it
Are
was,
you all shoveled?
pardon me.
Are you all shoveled?
I am all shoveled. That's another thing. I don't do it myself anymore. I have money now, so I pay young men to come in with plows and snow blowers to clear it
Wonderful.
out, and have a long driveway, so it took a while.
Yeah.
But yes, I am dug out now, ready to go on. And so are we in this podcast. I want to bring up another topic, okay? It's
Yep.
almost been forgotten. We didn't have time to talk about it at a salon because we got snowed out. But Trump went to Davos and he gave a
Right.
speech and scared the whole world before he did one of his tacos and seemed to pull back a bit. What do you see as the fate of, first, let's bring up Greenland, then I'm going to bring up Gaza. What do you see as the fate of Greenland?
Well, I think for now, Trump is going to add that to the wars he stopped. He,
He stopped the war over Greenland.
yeah.
I hadn't
um,
thought of that. He might.
I think he is just, it's embarrassing, and it ought to embarrass him. But I don't know that I don't know that he's really capable of embarrassment. He is now claiming a win in Greenland. They're going to let him do exactly what the United States could have done. We could have, moved in military bases, built a golden dome or an iron dome or something. And done everything that they've said. Yeah, you want to do that? We're okay with it. And
Under
he's going to
terms of our
claim.
military agreement with Greenland and hence Denmark, all of that was possible and would have been encouraged most likely by our allies.
I think what is also true in this is that he has been weakened by this. He has looked again like a person who blusters and threatens and then settles for no gain, but tries to make it look like he gained something. And I think the world is becoming more and more convinced of it. And there was an interesting, and I kind of missed this nuance of it all,
Mhm.
that the right wing in Europe, there's been kind of this feeling that uh, I don't want to say fascism, but that a conservative world order was, kind of developing, and he was at the lead of it. He was kind of like the standard bearer of it. People look to the United States for leadership, and this is the unfortunate leadership he's provided is heartening right wing parties in
Right,
Germany, in Italy, and
right.
so forth.
Especially
Um,
Germany, yes.
they are looking at him now, not kindly, because he is threatening to he's threatening to take over countries
Yeah.
in their backyard, and that is not something they want to hear. Nationalism is what that's about, and they all want to have nationalist, their own nationalist islands. And that conflicts with the idea that the United States can do whatever it wants anywhere it wants. And so he has weakened himself on two levels. One is, I think, just the lack of respect that people showed for him, and their, the obvious handling of him now.
Mhm.
And then, the idea that he's alienated the right in Europe, which is,
Well, he's also weakened the United States, which is
yes.
far more troubling. I enjoy seeing him humbled and humiliated. That's what he deserves. But the United States is weakened now. You saw Canada signing agreements with China. The
Mm-hmm.
EU today just announced a huge new trade agreement with China. Anything that helps China hurts the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And NATO is still in trouble. And the hero of the day is no longer the leader of the free world, no longer looks to be Donald Trump. It looks to be Mark Carney from
Yeah.
Canada, who gave a impassioned and actually I think it was a brilliant speech
Mm-hmm.
about the day of the superpower protecting us is over. It's up to the middle powers, the Canadas of the world, to unite and to take over and protect themselves. That's not good for America.
Yeah. And then to insult all those countries as well, to basically say we're the only ones who fought war, basically we fought World War II, we fought the Gulf War, we did this, we did that, just
Oh, awful.
gating
Yes.
people.
The British and Danish soldiers stood back from the front line in Afghanistan. What was he wasn't thinking. I was going
He
to say,
wasn't
what
thinking.
was
He
he?
never
He
does.
wasn't. Yeah. It's just insulting and horrible. And instead, he seems to be setting up an alternative or trying to set up an alternative world order. He now has announced what is he calling it? A board of peace to handle. First, it was just going to be to deal with Gaza. Now it's to handle all the issues that used to go or should still go to the Security Council in the UN. And
Right.
what a collection of financiers and dictators and power hungry crazies he has put together for that.
And it does not look like the Western powers that he wants on this want to join him, want to join his club. And then he started saying, well, not only not only am I not inviting you, but you have to pay $1 billion if you want to join now.
Yeah, he set up another Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, yeah. He's it's weird. It's hard to know from day to day how much of this is thought out, how much of this is just his handlers letting him loose and saying, well, we've got other stuff going, we've got the more important stuff going on in the United States that we're doing, in terms of environmental regulations being gutted, in terms of I don't even know who
Right.
gains by the health regulations. I think that's just meat for the base. But I think there are people in the United States government that have said, let's not handle him. Let's let him just keep creating chaos, but let's keep a very laser focus on the things that we want to get done, which
Right.
is gutting environmental regulations, gutting constraints on businesses in general, that kind of thing. They're getting what they want. And he's a distraction. And eventually, and they do let him run amok, which is part of the problem. What we saw with
Right.
Venezuela, what we saw with what we've seen with the immigration crackdown in Minnesota. I think they see that as, don't worry about that; it'll all take care of itself.
Yeah, I've long held that Republicans are not going along with Trump out of some fear that he'll primary them, although he will do that. It's exactly what they like what he's doing, basically.
I
And
think
that,
yes.
yeah, they do. And he's been very successful in it. I mean, we're going after such popular programs now with the Endangered Species Act. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
and he's getting away with all of it. There is no EPA anymore. Polio vaccines are optional. How can this be something that did we vote for this? I don't know. I continue to have trouble with not feeling a certain thrill of the same sort of revenge that Trump seems to enjoy when bad things happen to the people who voted for him.
I
His Hispanic families who are seeing relatives go, oh, I never thought they'd come for us because they're not criminals. Really, you didn't see that.
yeah.
I have to fight back against feeling a little bit of satisfaction at that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I, I said to my wife the other day, assuming we get through the 26 elections, I look forward to the day that we watch video, we watched live video of his name being taken off things,
The Kennedy Center
the
off
Kennedy Center,
maybe.
starting with the Kennedy Center,
Yeah.
everything that, we watch the demolition of this half done, because it's probably as far as they're going to get, or quarter done ball, this
Ballroom.
Louis the 16th ballroom. Um,
Pull off that all the gold plate and he's added to every room in the outside of the White House and take the pavement off of the Rose Garden and put a lawn back in. Yeah,
oh,
I think about that. Yeah.
I hope that's the case. You saw with the note that the letter that Bondi sent to Waltz, and she threw in the voting. They want the voter rolls, and
Hmm.
this is
Yeah.
kind of,
Sounded like extortion, didn't it?
oh, it was, that was sheer blackmail. That was,
Hmm.
will, and it didn't make any sense when you really look at it. We'll consider taking the agents out of the state, will
Yeah, we'll
or
consider it.
reducing
Want
them
you.
when you cooperate with them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And it is really, while I have those same feelings, Jay, I know it's a pipe dream. You don't go back to normal. Even if Trump were to, oh God, I'd hate for this to happen if he were to drop dead of a heart attack tomorrow, or if he gets voted out in November. We're not going back to normal.
No.
And Italy is the example of this. They voted for uh, and mostly suffered under Berlusconi for a long time, and he had parties where there were young women, and he was corrupt, and he controlled the media. It's almost exactly the same as our Trump, and Italy still has not recovered from that. It'll take 20 years minimum, if then, because you still have the Supreme Court will skew conservative for the rest of our lifetime for sure. Yeah, you don't recover from this. Uh, Biden had 4 years. What did he manage to protect against in those 4 years? Not very much.
I think he was so concerned with getting the nuts and bolts kind of stuff done that he wanted, that he really didn't look at the democratic,
Right.
the integrity of the republic.
Plus, there's the mechanism in the United States to make the repairs. How, for example, to fix presidential pardons, which have become basically get out of jail for free cards under
Mhm.
Trump. He has made money off of pardons. How do you fix that? That requires an amendment to the Constitution. We haven't had one of those in decades.
No, and I think that's, I actually, that is the one that gives me the most, that I think has the best chance, especially if a Democratic president gets elected, because then the
Fixing the
Republicans
pardon
will say,
system.
"Whoa, look what Trump did with it." Now this guy or woman is going to do that. We can't have this rampant criminality going on through
Wow.
presidential pardons, and it may actually be a movement in the country to do that. Um, that's one. Um, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. And then we could take off the table the question of whether the president can ever pardon himself for his own crimes.
That needs to be settled, and it is not. You're right. You're right about that. Or the family, because Biden and Trump both have thought about, if not actually used, the pardon power to protect family members in trouble. So,
They'll have to make it Supreme Court proof, though. The thing about the
right,
Supreme Court is this can't be an executive branch. Let's say you have a board
right,
that does this. It can't be just another independent agency that all of a sudden the Supreme Court turns around and says, "Oh, well, the president can fire anybody he wants on the board
right, right.
that's supposed to rein him in on the pardons." So, it's going to need to be a well thought out. It's amazing when you look at the Constitution how simple everything
Mhm.
was written,
Yep.
and how we were kind of, I think they kind of expected that we were going to behave reasonably well in the interests of, that somehow collectively we would come up with, we would understand what the point of all this
Well, the
was.
founding fathers said it. They expected that this Constitution was a beginning document, and they expected revisions or rewrites like within 20 years.
Yeah.
That once you saw how things work, then you would make the improvements needed. And that,
Yeah.
of course, has not happened. It's become this Bible-like sacrosanct document that cannot be trampled on, but it can be interpreted any way you want.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Atlantic. There was a piece in the Atlantic that did a wonderful, really long article about how that process. So the amendment process is broken because
Oh, Jill Lepori's piece. I read that.
yes,
Yes. Hmm.
and then how it was about actually about how originalism broke the Constitution.
Yep. Yep.
And how we're not getting it done through the courts anymore, and we're not getting it done through the amendment process anymore. So basically, we have this feeling among the justices that they will permanently decide what the Constitution means and doesn't mean, and it kind of turns the Supreme Court basically into another government.
Yeah, it does. It's got way more power than I think the founders ever intended it to have. But you have to give credit, uh, if that's the right word, to Trump and the conservatives, the Heritage Foundation, who sat down over the 4 years that Biden was in office. They were sitting there figuring out how to get around, how to use the weaknesses that we've been talking about to
Mm-hmm.
get what they wanted. And it truly is masterful. And they have gotten a lot of what they were after.
Yep.
I hope it's happening, outside of my ken. I don't see Democrats or liberals sitting around doing the same thing in the think
No, and
tanks.
we've talked about this in terms of the
We
Salon.
have
We're hoping to build a kind of an agenda
a
20.
project 2029.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not happening. Okay, another abrupt subject change here. I have failed to say to listeners who might be just coming in right now, I'm Rosemary Armao, and I'm talking with Jay Jochnowitz, who is editorial writer, longtime opinion writer for the Albany Times Union. And we do a monthly salon where we sit down and do this sort of thing in front of a live audience at the Orchard Club. I'll have to put some information out on my website for you to see how to become part of that. It's very fun. And it isn't just us talking. We have some really interesting people who bring up their ideas too.
Yeah.
Mostly they're, I have to say, anti-Trumpers. I mean, so yeah, very much anti-Trumpers. I would love to see some people arguing on the other side, mostly because I like to smash them, not because I want to really listen to them. I'm not a good person, but it's a wonderful event. We haven't had it for a few months because of the holidays and then some very bad weather, but we're doing this remotely now, and we start again in the middle of this, the third Sunday of the month, and we'll be doing that in February. I'll put out some more information. So one more abrupt change of subject here, Jay, and that is continuing terrifying and effective attacks against the media. I am thinking of a raid on the home of a Washington Post reporter who had written critically about Trump, and agents from the Justice Department went in and took all of her devices, laptop and phones, and just raided them. It seems to me we have a Fourth Amendment, which is being now ignored as much as the First Amendment.
Mhm.
And amazingly, the owner of the Washington Post, who is a Trump sycophant follower, Jeff Bezos, has had nothing to say about this outrage. Many journalism groups have said this is dangerous, it's bad, we can't do this. Bezos has been silent. What's your thoughts on that? How would you like to see a bunch of just G-men coming in and raiding your house, Jay?
Yeah, it's something as I've been, kind of cleaning up my life a little as in semi-retirement. Every time I look at a document, I say, this could go.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't have a lot of secrets. Everything I've ever known, I've written. Um, a couple of minor things maybe stick in my head or in my files that never saw the light of day. But for the most part, I kind of believe that the job of a journalist was to shine the light on things. So as far as sources go, and that's the thing that I think
Right.
is particularly chilling here. Uh, that's a scary thing, and I think that's the fishing expedition they're always on, is to find out who is leaking information,
Right.
And and they and sometimes they're very straightforward about that.
Yeah.
Um, the idea, but the intimidation of the press is a whole tapestry of things going on. The latest thing being that they're even going after talk show hosts, but only on the left, it seems,
Right.
and telling them if you have a political candidate on, you have to give equal time to the opponent.
Yeah, the FCC has become one of the vassal states of Trump land, and yeah, they're using the equal time, which has some merit to it, but it
Hmm?
never applied to news. It never applied to talk shows.
No,
And you're right, it actually would affect the right wing publications and broadcasts more than the left wing. They also don't bring any Democrats on to, Michael Savage, for example, doesn't talk to Democrats. So,
he he's my one example of a talk show host many years ago when Savage was on one of the local radio stations.
uh-huh.
He was trying to bait Chuck Schumer into coming on the show, and he was just denigrating Schumer every night. Schumer went on the show,
Oh, good for
and
him.
Savage was a perfect gentleman. And at the end of the show, said, "You've really changed my mind about you." I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
that's not an exact quote, but
It's like
he even,
Mondani going to the White House and
yeah,
suddenly
yeah,
we saw another Trump taco there. Well, you're right. It's the leaks, it's the whistleblowers that I think might be the Trumpian targets as much as if maybe even more than the journalists. And we saw this week that in another blast of retribution. Boy, Trump he could be Sicilian. He is so much after, revenge. Went after Booz Allen Hamilton, the accounting company, and took away something like $21 million in contracts that the federal government has with them. And that was because an employee of that company leaked the Trump tax returns that were used by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times in a series of revelations about how Trump paid no taxes, that he's a scofflaw. And now Booz Hamilton actually cooperated in that investigation. One of their employees, Charles Littlejohn is his name, is actually in prison right now for misusing this information. You can't leak tax documents like he did. So they did everything they could when they had the misfortune of a bad employee, and now they're still going to suffer a huge loss. That's how Trump treats people. And this is all to chill information going to the press, bad information going to the press.
there's no purpose in that other than to frighten people
Right, right.
and worry them. And the same thing's going to happen with journalists. It's it to go to go back to the quote unquote this new fairness doctrine that the
Right,
FCC
right.
seems to have done with no regulatory process, because they say whatever they're insisting on is already in effect in policy. The Mark Levins and the Michael Savages and the Sean Hannitys and
Yeah.
all these people, Fox and Friends in the morning, all these folks are going to be up in arms if that's done. But I think they believe, and this is they probably believe that it's all in the enforcement and they will be untouchable.
Yes.
And so they'll go along with it. And boy, is that a dangerous thing for them to go along with. I haven't listened to Savage lately or Levin.
It's hard. Even Fox News is hard too. I force myself regularly because I want to be able to bash them, to tell you the truth. But yeah, it is hard. It is very one-sided. And so though to MS now they call it. It's hard to take too. There's no Republicans on at all. That's because they're all Trumpian and they don't come on those shows. But it's very difficult. I sort of like the idea of the fairness doctrine, but not the way that it's being proposed to be used. That would work. I found myself cheering this week for Don Lemon, who I never liked when he was a journalist. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what he does now is real journalism, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And he was part of that protest at the church service in Minneapolis, and the Justice Department wants to get him.
yeah,
And judges have thrown out one attempt to indict him after another, and grand juries, of course, have been in revolt against these unfair revengeful efforts of the Justice Department. I sort of like that. I like that fighting back spirit. It's like all the Minneapolis people out in this horrible weather saying, "ICE out now."
yeah.
it does give you a little bit of hope.
It does. Lisa was Lisa was watching. Just she's a bit more of a night owl than I was. I was going.
Lisa is Jay's wife, by the
Yeah.
way.
Um, and she was crying a little when I went up and I said, "Hun, turn the channel." And she said, "No, these are really good tears. Some of this is really encouraging."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay," with exactly that tone in my voice. And she turned around and she said, "It's false hope." She said, "I
It's
don't
true.
want to tell you that."
I put out a Facebook post early last week about there's some rays of sunshine here, and I was pointing to small victories like Trump turning back on his Greenland invasion talk. And then immediately we end up with a second murder in Minneapolis. And so, yeah, you get one small step forward and
Yeah.
then the hammer falls again. It's a little discouraging. And
It'll
winter
be
weather
interesting
doesn't help the mood.
if you can sit through it. I think he's doing a rally in Iowa
Oh my.
today or tomorrow. I was wondering, it's been a while since he got out on the, bad weather and all that, and he's had a few things going on like Davos and a war that he had to stop in Greenland, um, and the whole,
And he's running Venezuela now. It's not just one country anymore.
yeah, and he's going to have to deal with Maine. That's going to be an interesting issue as
Yeah,
well.
that will be very
What's
interesting.
going to happen there in a state of
And his health is
a
not
lot of
good.
guns?
We haven't, I don't know that I want to get into this topic because it could be another whole hour we
Yeah,
go, but he does not look good. He doesn't speak well. There's pictures of him with, odd bunches in his pants that people are speculating might be diapers or catheters and he's got bruises on both hands now. He's not a well man.
I think that's why he's going to Iowa. I think he needs an emotional. I think he's
Boost.
been pretty battered, and I think he needs an emotional lift that he gets, from crowds.
And you
During.
don't think Melania's documentary will give him that boost?
Ooh, I don't think so.
That's one of the positive things I saw
You heard it here first.
yeah.
I am betting that he is going or she is going to sue the bad reviewers.
Oh my goodness. That would be well, who was it? Truman sued reviewers who didn't like his daughter Margaret's music concerts, her piano concerts.
Oh,
So yeah, he would not be the first president to do that even.
no, no, I think he'll do it. I haven't seen the movie. I don't intend to see the movie.
No, I
Apparently,
don't want to
people
bring
are
any
pretty
money to their
adamant.
pocket. I want Amazon to lose a bunch of money on this too.
It's getting booed in previews in the movie theater.
Oh, I know, I know. I am amazed that the director of this movie is another sex predator. He hasn't made a movie in 10 years because of sexual harassment charges brought against him, and that's who they picked. There does seem to be this Epstein thread through everything Trump does.
It may be that they couldn't find a credible director to do that.
You think,
It
maybe.
is a fairly liberal industry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And certainly, unless you get the Mel Gibsons of the world or something like that, a pretty not conservative industry.
Well, I hate to say this, but we have run out of time, Jay. We can't let 3 months go by again. And I'll
No,
see you in mid-February in Vermont. I hope we'll bring in some more listeners to that. We traditionally end our podcast with a toast, and I want to make one today to community builders. As things seem to be falling apart, there's increasing talk at senior centers, and public forums at universities about the people who do the opposite of Trump. And instead of breeding chaos and fanning the flames, they're applauding and welcoming people who do the opposite, who plow each other's driveways, who bring food to immigrant families who are afraid to leave their house, who babysit, who garden and share their vegetables, who build community rather than tear it apart. And they deserve our support, and we need to join them, and we need a lot more of them. So, a toast to community building.
yes, and we should, and I think people went out of their way to make that a dirty word. Community organizer
Oh
under,
yeah, that's how Obama that is. I hadn't thought of that. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's strong, and we see the boy again. Maybe a secondary toast here to those protesters in Minneapolis, who we all owe. I wish I had the money and time and the ability to withstand cold to go out and join them. They are American patriots.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Take care. See you soon.